This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed Daily Business News for people who make their own decisions. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, our weekend show is vastly different to our weekday show. This is all about the two of us, each nominating what we think is the biggest business story of the week, the most remarkable business story, a sleeper story, one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, not getting the attention that we think it should be getting. And we also pick out our favourite business story. We put them out there for a judge to pick a winner and decide between the two of us. And that judge every week is our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang. Adam, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, look, criteria, they're really meaningless, but Adam, take us through what you are looking for. It's just good to know what you're going to be disregarding as we go through.
Thank you. So in this battle of business intellectuals, which you both are, topicality, timeliness, economic impact, my subjective bias has to come into account, and, of course, melodrama.
Never been called a business intellectual before.
Nor have I.
Yeah. This is good. I feel like you're setting us up for a big battle here, Adam. Sean.
Yes.
Would you like to go first on the biggest story of the week? Deliver us something huge. Just I don't know, bust out the biggest story of the year, please.
Absolutely. Having said that, though, let's start by saying this hasn't exactly been a premiere week when it comes to news. Like, I'm not sure we've had a blockbuster this week.
Not an audacious start so far.
No, but Adam, please.
Wait.
Because sometimes that happens. Not every week can be the biggest week of the year. Some weeks have to be the 49th biggest week of the year. Some week has to be the 52nd biggest week of the year. But let's just put that in the cupboard for the time being. Of all the stories around the place this week, the one that, according to Adam's rather arbitrary judging criteria, is the biggest story is the one around interest rates. This one story has a couple of parts, admittedly. First, we found out this week that the Reserve Bank seriously debated lifting the official interest rate at its board meeting 2 weeks ago. It remains very alert, don't you love that, very alert, to stubbornly high inflation. Any further slippage in inflation, as in it rises more than forecast, then watch out. Since that meeting, of course, we've had the federal budget, which has been released, and a $300 energy rebate. That should push inflation lower towards the end of this year. This week, we also found out, courtesy of the Westpac Consumer Sentiment Survey, that people are looking to use their stage 3 tax cuts to pay down debt. Whoa, crazy. Or save rather than rush out and spend. Now, if you think of the marginal propensity to save, basically people don't save a stack of money. They save like 3 or 4%. Well, this Westpac Consumer Sentiment says that 30% of people will save all the tax cuts. Another 50% will save at least half of it. That is massive. So since the May board meeting, we've had 2 bits of really important information that suggests inflation, or at least the official reading of inflation, will fall. That's put on the table the chance the rates might actually fall later this year. In an incredible week for news, that is the biggest story. Michael. Oh, stop laughing at me. Come on.
I'm sorry, Sean. I admire your attempt in a week where nothing in the economy actually happened this week, that you have tried to still position the economy, which you're not even allowed to do. The Joseph intervention is very clear that you are not allowed to put the economy as a broad topic.
So my question to you then, Michael, I put it to you, sir. Have you got a story where something actually happened?
Oh, yes, I do.
I want something that actually happened.
I have a story where something absolutely happened. This is the biggest story of the week. A major development in a story involving...
Hold on. A development?
Yes.
So obviously it's not new. This is like incremental. Yep, go on.
No, it is something actually happening. Have you heard of BHP, Sean?
Yes. What has it gone and done something this week?
Yes.
What's it done?
I'll tell you what it's done. Its pursuit of rival miner Anglo-American stepped up, not just a notch, it stepped up an entire rung on the ladder of corporate excitement this week. It is at fever pitch right now, because You wanted to know what happened this week? I'll tell you what happened this week. BHP made a $73.9 billion offer.
Oh, so it's bought Anglo-American, has it?
It has not. But that is where the excitement comes in. But hang on. You're talking about data that wasn't even really kind of happening this week that might influence something later in the future, and the notes from a meeting that took place 2 weeks ago. And you're saying that's the biggest story this week. Here, we have a $73.9 billion offer that came in this week, was rejected this week, which is a story in itself, right?
Nothing happened.
But, Sean, this is BHP's third bid in as many weeks, a 9% increase on what it offered last week, based on the same structure as before, involved selling off a bunch of assets in South Africa. Again, the Anglo-American board rejected it. But, and I know I've said but many times, but this is a massive, massive but. Anglo has given BHP a 1-week extension to come up with an improved bid. Right, I'm going to turn your microphone off in a second. I have that power. And Adam, you also have the power to intervene and stop this awful disrespect. But anyway.
Awful disrespect to the category, the biggest story. Absolutely, Adam, you do have that right.
Adam, the reason this is so significant is because the extension, the 1-week extension, takes it beyond the original May 22 deadline imposed by the UK's put up or shut up laws. And it also sends, significantly, a message to BHP that this thing is going somewhere. It has potential. Don't say anything, Sean. I can see you just itching to jump in here again. BHP has said it's not going to bid any more money, so the next handful of days are going to be very, very interesting in terms of how they negotiate and navigate this one. But, another but, why do we care so much about this? Why does it matter? Why is this the biggest story of the week? Because this is the biggest company in Australia by a significant margin. A lot of Australians own shares in it, either directly or through their super. Movement in its share price, as we saw this week, can affect the rest of the market. And this deal, which took a giant leap forward this week, has the potential to reshape the global mining industry and because of the extreme focus on Anglo's copper assets, that has the potential to position BHP as a future-facing company. Yes, no deal yet. But what we saw this week was... Sean, this is so significant. What we saw this week was the first sign that Anglo will actually engage. Anglo-American, I'm calling it, is on the market. And that is the biggest story of the week.
Now, Adam, yeah. I'm looking forward to your judgment on this, but we have never actually, like, mine is the biggest story, so please, I'm not undermining my story in the next 15 seconds, but we have never actually had you come and say, well, you two are duds, neither of you get points. I'm just putting it out there.
You know, it's funny you say that, Sean. I was thinking about how controversial would it be if I just disqualified you both from this category. What? And Sean, it was an admirable attempt in yours. Admirable attempt.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Not really much to it.
No, absolutely not.
So how about we just neutralise this category this week?
Really?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I genuinely disagree with this.
that is a shock.
No, but I mean, how is...
Michael, stop arguing. The judge has made his call. I thought I had no chance because the only way you could judge these two dud stories was on melodrama, which I'm always going to lose out on.
In which case Michael would win.
Yes, exactly. So, but the judge has called it. It's null and void.
I think so. And look, Michael, your story, admittedly, it was like a good attempt, but there's nothing actually happened. And in Sean's case, it was really... not much had happened, but the minutes got published for the RBA and, of course, the Westpac data, which is, a thought into what might happen rather than something that has happened. So,
how is a $74 billion offer nothing?
Well, it hasn't happened.
But the fact that it was still received is still a story, and it's
okay. Moving on. Most remarkable story. I'm just going to talk over you. I'm taking your role here, Michael, but we'll allow you to keep talking. It's 0-0 after one round, which is unheard of here. Most remarkable story, Michael. Oh, he's cranky. Look at him.
I I am seething with righteous anger.
Oh, good expression.
Hell hath no fury like a righteous Michael.
You know what? The people aren't going to like this. The people are not going to like this. Anyway, most remarkable. We knew, obviously, that chipmaker NVIDIA was flying, but this is just ridiculous. The company's revenue climbed 262% in the past quarter. The expectations were already high, and NVIDIA somehow just blew past them entirely. Of course, it's all about AI, the mad rush for the computing power behind the technology, with the big tech companies all racing to deliver AI products at scale. The seen demand for NVIDIA's products just skyrocket, but these numbers are just ridiculous, aren't they? In the March quarter, NVIDIA was making about $29 million a day in revenue. You know what that is? It's massive. Its shares are up about 90% this year alone. Another big surge this week after the results were announced, passing $1,000 a share for the first time. The revenue numbers are just remarkable. But get this, CEO Jensen Huang reckons the growth is actually going to continue because later this year, the company's Blackwell AI chip is going to be released. It's apparently twice as fast as what NVIDIA currently offers, 5 times the AI performance. And the boss told investors that, quote, we will see a lot of Blackwell revenue this year. Now, these things cost $30,000 to $40,000 per unit. So it sounds like NVIDIA isn't slowing down. This is a heck of a story. When you just look at the 262% increase in the past quarter. I don't even need to add melodrama. This story sells itself. It is by far the most remarkable story. I would argue, in terms of results, it's probably the most remarkable story of the year because it also taps into what is the biggest trend of all at the moment, which is AI. I'm just going to rest my case right there. What have you got, Sean?
The Star Entertainment Group. What a schmozzle. Sure, we have the second Adam Bell inquiry going on and calls for the gaming group to lose its license in New South Wales. But this week, I think the Star somehow managed a new low in communication to shareholders. Totally remarkable. It was a major red-faced moment and a real wealth creator or destroyer for investors. Hard Rock International, the Florida-based hospitality giant, came out and distanced itself from media reports that it was in talks to buy Star Entertainment, owners of casinos in New South Wales and Queensland. Now, that talk had sent Star's share price up 20%. Hard Rock came out and said, or Hard Rock International came out and said it had never entertained the idea. Turns out the interested party was a Brisbane developer with links to the now defunct Hard Rock Cafe in Surfers Paradise, something slightly different. In its announcement to the ASX, Star said it had received, so these are the words of Star, it had received an approach from a consortium including Hard Rock Hotels and Resorts, open bracket Pacific, close bracket, which it, and I quote, understands is a local partner of Hard Rock. A little bit of due diligence on the fact that Hard Rock Hotels and Resorts Pacific has nothing to do with Hard Rock International would have been handy. They're putting this out to the ASX. This is an official document. What about those investors who bought into the stock only to see it tumble back down when they realised it wasn't the Hard Rock International crowd? Just remarkable that in an announcement to the ASX, given what's happened at that company, it can still get it so wrong. That is remarkable as opposed to some sort of trend that's been going on for years. Adam.
Okay. Thank you both. Michael wins.
That's no surprise, given your total lack of regard for what's happening locally. But go on.
What the heck?
Thus far, we've had Michael talking about Anglo-American, and he's talking about US. I mean, bring it home, Michael. Bring it home to Australia. Anyway, sorry, go on, Adam.
The fact that the scale and the rapidity of the growth in NVIDIA in the last 5 years in particular, but that it's going to go faster, that's incredible. Specifically, the Blackwell chip, good name too. And that it's worth so much as an individual entity, but that it's going to further grow this company. Incredible and remarkable story. The Star Entertainment story, it's, I should excellent work on the melodrama on that one. But the Star Entertainment story, it's like, oh God, not another stuff up. It's just incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is incredible, Adam, as opposed to Michael's dribble.
This is outrageous.
No, it is outrageous. You won, though.
Well, on that point, you're agreed.
Okay, 1-0.
1-0.
So there's no score at all for the first round. Is that?
I think so.
How about Michael? Forget the judge. Half, 1.5 to half.
Yep, sounds good. That's good. That's better than just disregarding all of it. 1.5 to 0.5. We are heading into halftime. I've got a very good local sleeper story coming up afterwards, Sean. I know you've criticised me for doing very kind of global stories and taking a big picture approach because that's kind of what I do.
It's like Peter Allen singing I Still Call Australia Home. Bring it home, Michael.
I have no idea how that fits into this conversation, Adam.
Gosh, you come up with some obscure references sometimes, Adam. But anyway, we'll take a quick break and we will come back with the sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we're looking for the sleeper story, which is one that's flying under the radar, or it's not getting the attention that we feel it deserves, or is subject to some other random criteria that that Adam may just decide to impose on a whim. Would you like to go first on this one?
I would. Telstra's share price. That is a sleeper. There are about, I think it's 1.2, 1.3 million shareholders in Telstra, thanks to the fact that it was a government-owned entity. It was sold off in 3 tranches. Many Australians, for the first time, took advantage of the relatively cheap way to enter the ASX. They became share market investors, a good thing. But while we were looking away and watching NVIDIA and Friends and sort of stuff that's going on overseas and whatever Michael's been talking about, Anglo-American in the UK, all that stuff, while we weren't watching, Telstra has really struggled. And its share price at one point this week was down more than 7% in 2 sessions. It started when the country's largest telco said it will shed 2,800 jobs. The reason is that outside mobile phones? Mobiles.
Jesus.
I said
Yes.
mobile. Okay. Outside mobile phones, it just isn't doing that well. The group enterprise division is fighting the shift to the cloud. The consumer business has been hit hard by the NBN. The business division is suffering from people not using landlines. In fact, the boss of Telstra, Vicky Brady, actually admitted this week she doesn't even have a landline on her desk. Then it has increased competition, particularly in the bush, from the $1.6 billion network sharing deal between Optus and TPG. Basically, Telstra, like the record industry before it, the media industry before it, plenty of others, it's a legacy business. Good. It's a legacy business and it's just struggling to keep up in a tech-driven world. Telstra's share price hit a 3-year low this week. Think of the 1.2, 1.3 million shareholders. That affects their income, all those pensioners, that affects them because they rely on dividends and things like that. No one's talking much about this. I mean, I guarantee the shareholders know about it. But this is a really, really big deal because the company that introduced the ASX to so many hundreds of thousands of Australians is really, really struggling. I think there's a little bit of like just deep emotional something going on here. Melodrama.
So deep emotional something.
Yeah, something.
Poetry.
Sounds like an obscure band that Adam would have liked in the 80s. Are you done?
Michael, I'm affected. I'm saddened. And I'm done.
By this deeply emotional something. I'm assuming you are done because it feels like it could have been done a minute and a half ago. Because that was a very long story. My story is short. My story is sharp. Sorry, I'm still limbering up as I'm preparing for mine. The sleeper story this week. The banks. They better watch out, it seems.
So better not cry.
No. Resist the urge to say it. I can't. I'm telling you why, Sean. I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
But now that we've finished that one off, we can kind of wrap that up and move on with the actual story of why ASIC is gunning for the banks. The regulator told the banks that some lenders had, quote, effectively abandoned customers who are struggling with the cost of living crisis. ASIC says, and this is pretty shocking, actually, says that some home lenders, not all, some, have made accessing financial assistance so hard that more than 1 in 3 people actually dropped out of the application process at least once. It hasn't had a lot of attention this week, but when ASIC chair Joe Longo is threatening to take enforcement action if things don't improve, you can absolutely guarantee that this is going to become a bigger story, which is the definition of our sleeper story category. ASIC reviewed 10 large lenders and found that they should be doing more to support Australians struggling to meet their repayments. Banks have an obligation to help their customers if they can. Certainly, they have an obligation to review the situation and see what can be done, but it's pretty shameful, isn't it, that some were making that process so hard that people were actually dropping out rather than getting the help that they need. ASIC also told us that 40% of customers who received hardship assistance through reduction or deferral of payments fell into arrears again right after the assistance period ended. They said that most households have the capacity to withstand one hit to their finances, for example, going from 2 incomes to 1 or an illness. But as soon as you add a second thing that impacts the finances of the household, the number of people needing help from an external source, i.e. a bank, jumps right up. And in this case, the second hit, which is almost a universal one, is the cost of living crisis. So the banks have been warned, look out for your customers, make it easier for them to get help, because if you don't, ASIC is coming for you. Sleeper story this week because it didn't get talked about much, but you can be sure that the banks will have been paying attention and hopefully they pull up their socks. There you go, Adam. No melodrama, just the facts.
So, Sean, when you mentioned your story, I thought this is going to be really hard to beat, and Michael proved that it was. So, well done, Sean.
Well, just like that. Just like that.
That was
savage.
Unexpectedly savage.
Wasn't intentionally so. Telstra's share price. The reason I'm saying that one's the biggest sleeper story is this. So Telstra, as Sean, you mentioned, it's connected to so many Australian investors, right? So it's an incredible story and a transition for one of our biggest companies. Michael, your story is really good. You didn't really bring it home on the melodrama, which you did acknowledge, but I'm hoping that ASIC is showing some good preemptive striking on this, and that banks will respond to people in hardship and the compounding effect that people are going through with multiple difficulties, taking them into financial distress. So I'm hoping that this works. But I think on this one, Sean has to win for Sleeper Story of the Week.
It's hard to have melodrama when the fire has been extinguished.
Can I just make a comment? So, the judging's over, right? Sometimes ASIC really annoys me.
Oh,
because it says things like, home lenders have made accessing financial assistance so hard, more than 1 in 3 drop out. I've got to stand up for the banks a bit here. You've got to make sure that the right people get the financial assistance, the people that really need it. And so there has to be a process to go through. And then the flip side is at the end of it, and so people who are getting hardship and then they stop getting hardship support, then they struggle again, or 40% of them struggle again. I think that's remarkable that 60% make it through. And what do you expect? People are in hardship. It's really tough out there. I don't know. Sometimes I think regulators just get a little bit too over-enthusiastic about the fact that they can get media on stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, I think to your point, Sean, there is an attribute in all of that, which is to say that many of those in financial hardship found a way out with the help of their banks. That's the good part of that story.
Michael, I want you to find the fire. I don't like it when you're just sitting there.
Limp.
Grumpy. Remember, this is at 1.5 to 1.5 at the moment, I believe.
Yeah.
So you're in this. You're absolutely in this. Bring it home with your favourite story of the week.
I'm not just in this, Sean. I've got this.
Oh, he's back.
Ooh. Oh, he is back.
The favourite story of the week. I had to look beyond our shores.
What a surprise.
It was a quieter week. There really wasn't much happening this week except for BHP's bid for Anglo American. But favourite story, Hello. The UK heading to the polls on July 4.
Oh, now hold on. Just because Adam's married to a Brit, you can't.
Do you suspect he's playing the judge, Sean?
I think he's playing the judge's wife, and don't take that wrongly either.
Jesus. Sean.
Lara, I don't mean that in any wrong way, but Michael is sucking up. Go on.
Anyway, the UK off to the polls earlier than expected after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced a surprise general election. It is my favourite story. It's my favourite story because it's just the latest political drama from a country not really known so much for political chaos, but how things have changed over the last few years. It's going to be quite a battle for the incumbent because Labor, led by Keir Starmer, is considered a shoo-in. The Times newspaper put Labor's lead at 27 percentage points, which is quite extraordinary. And their campaign is already zeroing in on what they've dubbed Tory chaos, which kind of makes sense when you think about it, given that the Conservative government has had 5 prime ministers since they came to power, 4 of them in just the last 8 years. One of them was there for just 49 days in total and was infamously outlasted by a lettuce. Do you remember that?
The iceberg.
The iceberg lettuce. Like, will it outlast her? And unfortunately,
it did.
The lettuce outlasted Liz Truss. Anyway, Rishi Sunak has decided to go to the polls using inflation falling under 3%, lowest level in almost 3 years, as a demonstration of his ability to deliver economic stability, and also promoting a plan on border security. But honestly, the campaign, the election, it hasn't gotten off to the best start because he announced the election outside 10 Downing Street, as you do, but he did it in the rain. And he did it without an umbrella in the rain.
God, he looked bedraggled.
So he was drenched. He just looked wet and miserable. And of course, protesters were there playing the song "Things Can Only Get Better" on a loudspeaker, which interrupted his speech. So of course, the newspapers the next day had some great headlines, including "How long will he reign over us?" Drowning Street was another good one. And also, "Things Can Only Get Wetter," which is particularly good.
Wasn't that Tony Blair's, like the Labor?
I reckon it was, and I think it's by a band, D Ream.
Oh, look, Adam, too much detail, mate.
No one asked.
Okay. Let me tell you about that band's history. Yeah.
They had a fantastic B-side hit 4 years before that one came out. Not many people have heard of this, but if you Google it on YouTube, you might be able to find it. Like, oh dear Lord. Anyway, yep. Adam, economically, this story matters. The UK is, by my calculations, the 6th largest global economy. And what happens to the UK affects us, particularly when it comes to security deals like the AUKUS arrangement. Put it all together with AUKUS, with a dripping wet Rishi Sunak, with Boris Johnson with his COVID parties, Liz Truss and her lettuce. It is my favourite story of the week.
Brilliant.
Oh, that's a bad start for me when Adam says brilliant.
It's not looking good.
Can I just point out something here? Is this show so most of our listeners, where do they live?
Mostly in the UK, Sean.
Oh. Well, that would suit then, because Michael's first story, Anglo-UK, NVIDIA, US, UK, interesting.
This is outrageous. What have you got for us, Sean?
Well, it's a local story. In fact, it's a patriotic story because I'm a proud Australian. I really am. And I'm proud that Sydney, Melbourne and Perth are among the top 25 cities in this world in terms of living in it. That's according to Oxford Economics' inaugural Global Cities Index. Of course, if you asked me, I'd throw in Brisbane, Adelaide, Darwin, Canberra, Hobart, Wagga Wagga and Orange, of course. However, this index looked at 1,000 large urban economies. New York and London, best cities to live in. Melbourne's number 9, Sydney 16, Perth is 23. Okay, I submit that these rankings are highly subjective, but this one had some serious rigor. It looked at economics, human capital, quality of life, environment and governance. Heaviest weighting on economics. Adam, economics, heaviest weighting. That's why the US and European cities dominate the top 50 spots. I'll run through the top 10. New York, London, San Jose, which is in California, Tokyo, Paris, Seattle, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Melbourne, and Zurich. I think this is a magnificent ranking. And then I looked at some of the breakdowns. And it actually, in one of those categories, is quality of life. And I looked at the top quality of life cities. Canberra came in third. Well, didn't that undermine me? Didn't that? I thought, oh dear. I'm not sure whether I believe this index anymore. Anyway, passing that on, I've lived in Canberra. Magnificent spot to live, maybe, kind of, briefly.
We are overrepresented by Canberra listeners.
Well, your family, basically.
Just doing a little bit of a Google here in our analytics, and I can see that we are heavily weighted towards Canberra. So
at least I'm talking about somewhere where people live, as opposed to what you've done, the dribble you've provided us with today.
But based on what you're saying about that place, I think they would probably prefer you didn't. Sure.
I don't mind being hated so long as I'm relevant, Michael.
Touch of the Evelyn Wars.
That's it, Adam. I'm proud Australian and a patriot. I know you are. It's a bit of a shame that your wife does come from the UK, so you're a bit torn there. But that's my favourite story. It's just how well we've done in terms of global rankings.
So, Sean, on the Global Cities Index, I must say thank you to Jono from Wagga Wagga, who lamented the fact that Wagga Wagga is not included in the top 1,000 cities. But if it was, he has to vote for it.
He also, what we loved about Jono, he is a regular listener, has been listening for a long time, because he even mentioned Orange and Henty. Now, Henty is somewhere where Michael came from at some point in his life. Michael moved around a lot. He couldn't hold down a city. And I grew up in Orange, obviously in central west New South Wales. So Jono actually remembered that. So added those in as well. So in fact,
impressive.
I reckon if we ever get these Mia cups that you've been talking about forever, Adam, I reckon Jono should get the first one.
Oh, that's lovely. Most enthusiastic advocate, Jono. And can I just give a quick tribute to my birth town, Keith, South Australia?
Keith, I didn't realise you were born in Keith.
I don't think it's going to trouble the Global Cities Index anytime soon.
Quality of life, though.
A great quality of life. And to the favourite story, okay, controversial, I know. Michael wins.
I had no chance. That's fair enough. I was just building up because
I just
the UK election's a cracker.
But with Rishi too, and this is a little bit of a cynical view, but I wonder whether he's just calling the election because he knows he's going to lose and he's had enough, right? And I just thought, maybe this PM thing, I've done it now. I've outlasted the iceberg lettuce. I can go. And then the other thing, Julie Bishop appeared at Mumbrella 360 this week on Thursday, and she gave a brilliant presentation. She said that watch this space with Boris Johnson. She doesn't think he's done with the limelight. And just the calling of the election, I wonder whether he might find a way back in.
You really kind of tossed a little bit of bonus material in there at the end, didn't you?
It's a rare contribution.
It's like one of those, like, remember the extras when you get a DVD and you get like the outtakes and the director's kind of commentary and stuff? It feels like we've just got that little kind of an Easter egg from Adam just then, a little bit of bonus material that no one was actually expecting. I like that.
Well,
and Julie Bishop actually said that, did she?
She did. She also put up some magnificent photos of her during her career, and one of them was running on the Pall Mall in London between, this kind of the city area and Buckingham Palace with Boris Johnson. Now, she looked, fit well in her, fitness gear, her athleisure wear, and Boris looked like he was about to rob Buckingham Palace. It's a great image.
So, Michael, I think you've won 2.5 to 1.5.
Shall we have the scores, please, Adam?
Oh God, Sean 91 points, Michael 92 points.
That's an honourable win. I'll take it.
Take it.
There has been nothing honourable about today.
You're right.
Today has been an absolute disgrace.
There were no main stories. You couldn't even bring yourself back to Australia, and when you did, it was something that hadn't happened. And I lost. Nothing honourable. Goodbye.
As always, the judge feels the love.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great weekend.